Hello everyone. I know it's been a while since I've dug into it, but we're going to continue the Psalm 23 study. We're in verse 5. Psalm 23, verse 5. We just referenced that David, knowing the Lord is going to lead him through the valley, lead him to the valley, but he's also going to lead him through the valley, and that God's correction comforts him. And then he's going to go from seemingly this just stressful situation to what we would probably see as an unusual one. It says, verse 5, thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. He says that even though that God, regardless of the situation he's facing, regardless of the people who would see him, want to see him fall, want to see him falter, that God makes a way to allow us to be content in the situation. He allows us to not only just to be content, but to be overly abundantly so. He says, thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Not only does he allow David and us who walk with him seasons where even though we're surrounded by the things that threaten to overwhelm us, he allows us to have food and to have sustenance. He allows us to have rest in the midst of the storm. He allows us to have rest in the midst of trials and tribulations and things that would otherwise go against us. He says, thou preparest the table for me, even with them watching, even with them around. He says, you give me the ability to still be sustained. And if there's ever any point where because with sheep, if they got injured, it would be oil to help soothe the wound and things like that. He says, thou anointest my head with oil. He says, God brings healing to his brokenness. And then my cup runneth over. He's saying, we talk a lot, at least I hear a lot of people, are you a half full cup or a half empty cup? But David is saying that God allows his cup to run over. David is saying that regardless of whether it's a valley, shadow of death, whether it's comfort through correction, whether it's being surrounded by enemies and still being able to be sustained, whether it's needing healing of the broken areas in life, he's saying my cup runneth over, regardless of the situations around me. And then we finish off here in verse 6, he says, kind of the small verse he says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. He's saying, regardless of, he starts off saying, the Lord is my shepherd, he will not lack in want. God allows him to have seasons and times where he lies down in green pastures full of sustenance, where he leads him behind still waters full of peace, where he restores the inner struggles of his soul, where he leads him in paths of righteousness and leads him through the valley of the shadow of death. Both good and bad, God is there. He understands that he doesn't have to fear any evil because God is with him. He understands that even though the rod and the staff bring correction and sometimes temporary pain, and it is ultimately for the comfort and glory of the Lord, that even though the enemies will be out there, and there are always going to be enemies, there's always going to be people opposing the work of the Lord, it's the never-ending struggle that's already had a conclusion. It already has a conclusion. He says you will be sustained even then. You heal the outer struggles too, the pain that the life causes. He says, and through it all, your cup will be running over. The more you seek the Lord and empty yourself of him, God is bigger than any of us. God is bigger than David. God is bigger than you. God is bigger than me. If we keep emptying of ourselves, God is still willing to fill us so much that our cup runs over and is able to shine a light to those around us and make a difference to those around us and be a source of strength and a source of comfort and a source of encouragement and a source of hope for those around us. See like, hey, that person has something different. That person is facing trials and walking through valleys and dealing with pain and surrounded by those against them, and he or she is still just going and still showing joy and hope wonder what the difference is there. David is understanding that thousands and thousands of years ago, and it's still just as true now because God is the same. And he says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. No matter whether David makes the right choice, the wrong choice, no matter whether David sees it or doesn't see it, whether he sees the goodness in the situation or he doesn't, whether he sees the mercy in the situation or he doesn't, he says he knows that no matter what, goodness and mercy are seeking after him. They're pursuing him. They're following after him, just as they are following after me and you, saved or unsaved. If you're saved, that goodness and mercy is still pursuing you. He's still going after you. He still wants to know more about you. He still wants to spend more time with you. He still wants to fill you up with himself. And if you're lost, he's seeking after you because he is not willing that you should perish and be separated from him, that you should come to him and be a part of his family. God so loved the world that whoever, you, any of you, anybody, can be saved. Anybody, whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, have everlasting life. And David understood personally that he knew that he will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, even though he would obviously perish from this world as he did, that on the other side he'd be spending time with the Lord for eternity. By faith, David knew this. It's the reason he's in there. Psalm 23 is a very impactful psalm. It's probably the most well-known of them all. And thank you for taking the time to walk through me with it. Life has been full of valleys this season, this year of 2018. Even some green pastures and still waters. There's been a lot of restoration, a lot of correction, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. 12 months can bring a lot of circumstances to a lot of lives, but we've made it. We're 2 or 3 weeks away from the end of the year, so I'm glad you have made it this far in 2018. Keep going. Don't give up. Keep being focused on the Lord. Keep spending time with him. Feel free to comment if you have any other ideas, if any of these videos in this series have stuck out to you, or just to talk in general. I'm here for you. I'm glad you're alive, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. It means a lot, and stay focused.